Honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right. At its worst, Canada is what American voters think happens when there's no one putting a check on extreme wokeness. The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore. Or on immigration. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking.
Bill Maher usually doesn't focus much on criticizing other countries, but when Democrats start drifting into unrealistic ideas, someone has to pull them back to reality. Ever since Donald Trump returned to the White House, many on the left have once again become obsessed with moving to Canada, treating it like some perfect progressive paradise. Maher just broke that illusion down step by step. So what exactly did he say about Canada that has progressives uncomfortable? If you're ready for the full breakdown, hit subscribe and let's dive right in.
Well, if we want to save our country, we should follow the advice good liberals have given for decades and learn from other countries. Especially those beacons of progressivism like Canada, England, and Scandinavia. And I agree we should, as long as we're honest about the lessons we're learning, and as long as we're up to date on the current data, such as the unemployment rate in the U.S. is 3.8%, and in Canada it's 6.1%. And of the 15 North American cities with the worst air pollution, 14 are in Canada. I'm not citing these stats because I have it out for Canada. I love Canada and its people and always have. But I hate zombie lies. Zombie lies.
Maher didn't ease into the topic. He jumped in aggressively. He targeted one of the left's favorite beliefs, the idea that Canada is a polite, superior, and morally advanced haven that Democrats have praised for years. Honestly, that narrative has needed a reality check for a long time. How often have Americans been lectured by progressive leaders who describe Canada like it's a flawless utopia? Bernie Sanders has spent years praising Canada's healthcare system as the ideal model, using it to criticize the United States as cold and broken. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has also highlighted Canada's social programs, pushing the idea that America is far behind. These talking points have been repeated so often they've become stale. Maher calls them what they are: recycled myths. Old claims, worn-out assumptions, and repeated narratives dressed up as compassion and used to make America, especially under Trump, seem worse by comparison. But once he starts breaking down the facts, the whole story begins to fall apart.
There's only one problem with thinking everything's better in Canada. It's not. Not anymore, anyway. Last year, Canada added 1.3 million people, which is a lot in 1 year, the equivalent of the U.S. adding 11 million migrants in 1 year. And now they're experiencing a housing crisis even worse than ours. And we're sleeping in tents. The median price of a home here is $346,000. In Canada, converted to US dollars, it's $487,000. If Barbie moved to Winnipeg, she wouldn't be able to afford her dream house, and Ken would be working at Tim Hortons.
Then Maher shifts to another topic the left often avoids being direct about: open borders. Democrats rarely say it clearly, but critics have long argued that their policies and messaging point toward looser enforcement and more openness, while shaming anyone who disagrees. The debate became more intense during the Biden presidency, especially when Kamala Harris was put in charge of border issues, and critics accused her of not taking it seriously. That's when Maher brings Canada into the discussion and points to numbers he says should raise concern. Canada took in over 1 million immigrants in a single year, and according to Maher, the effects were immediate. Housing didn't just tighten, it became extremely difficult. Rent increased sharply. Owning a home became even harder for regular people. The financial pressure became impossible to ignore. His point is clear. When immigration happens on such a large scale without limits, the impact becomes very real for people trying to afford basic living.
And because of mortgage debt, Canada has the highest debt-to-GDP ratio of any G7 nation. I don't know what that means, but it sounds bad. So does their vaunted healthcare system, which ranks dead last among high-income countries in access to primary healthcare and ability to see a doctor in a day or two. And it's not for lack of spending. Of the 30 countries with universal coverage, Canada spends over 13% of its economy on it, which is a lot of money for free healthcare.
That leads Maher into another major progressive talking point: universal healthcare. Politicians like Bernie Sanders and figures like New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani often present Canada's healthcare system as the perfect example of government success. Free healthcare, they say, as if that alone answers every question. Maher disagrees with that idea. He points out the massive amount Canada spends on healthcare each year and then makes his point. Despite all that spending, he argues, Canada still struggles with access and quality compared to other developed countries. In some cases, it ranks near the bottom among similar nations. That's the part many avoid discussing. Free doesn't always mean better. Having no cost up front means little if people still face delays and the system fails to deliver strong results after consuming such a large portion of the economy.
Look, I'm not saying Canada still isn't a great country. It is, but those aren't paradise numbers. If Canada was an apartment, the lead feature might be America adjacent. And if America was a rental car, Canada would be America or similar. And again, honestly, Canada, I'm not saying any of this because I enjoy it. I don't, because I've always enjoyed you. But I need to cite you as a cautionary tale to help my country. And the moral of that tale is, yes, you can move too far left. And when you do, you wind up pushing the people in the middle to the right.
But Maher doesn't stop there. He moves into a topic that immediately makes the modern left defensive: wokeness. As if housing issues, immigration strain, and healthcare problems weren't enough to challenge the Canada narrative, Maher argues there's another side that rarely gets attention. Canada hasn't just explored progressive ideas. In his view, it has fully embraced them. It has built them into institutions, rewarded them, and embedded them deeply into society and government systems. This is no longer just about kindness or inclusion. Maher presents it as an extreme form of ideology that goes beyond balance and into enforcement. And once he starts giving examples, the tension increases quickly. That's when the discussion becomes uncomfortable for those who treat Canada as a moral guide.
They say in politics, liberals are the gas pedal and conservatives are the brakes. And I'm generally with the gas pedal, but not if we're driving off a cliff. On the trans issue, America is no ands, ifs, or buts about it, absolutely alone in the world now, an outlier country. Last month, England's National Health Service announced that there's not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers for third graders.
In Maher's view, Canada didn't just accept woke ideas. It fully adopted them and allowed them to shape everything. The examples he gives are not treated as rare incidents. He presents them as signs of a broader culture influenced by an ideology that often prioritizes feelings over facts and strict beliefs over open discussion. Try having a straightforward conversation about certain issues, he suggests, and see how quickly it turns into pressure to agree. That's his warning. The woke movement, as he describes it, isn't just annoying. It can become harmful. It can affect institutions, limit open dialogue, and make disagreement feel unacceptable. And the most powerful part of his argument is this: instead of learning from Canada's experience, parts of the American left seem eager to adopt the same ideas even more strongly.
So too with all the other good place countries, in direct opposition to America's choice to affirm children's wishes on switching gender, no matter the age or psychiatric history. The far left, which always like to use, well, Europe does it. Yeah, no, that doesn't work on this one anymore. Or on immigration. Sweden opened its borders to over 1.5 million immigrants since 2010, and now 20% of its citizens are foreign-born, and its education system is tanking, and it has Europe's highest rate of gangland killing.
Maher then expands the discussion by bringing Sweden into the conversation, and the comparison is clear. Sweden, once seen as one of Europe's most stable and organized societies, opened its doors to large-scale immigration over many years using similar humanitarian language that the American left often supports. Maher describes the results as concerning. He points to issues with crime, integration, and social unity in a country that was once considered very stable. Then he shifts back to the United States, focusing on education. For years, progressive ideas have been growing in influence within American schools. Critics argue that during the Biden era, that trend increased with less focus on accountability, including reduced emphasis on standardized testing. Maher's point is simple: fewer standards lead to less accountability. Less accountability leads to lower expectations. And lower expectations create a system where students feel supported, but are not properly prepared.
And one result is that the far-right parties are in the government now there for the first time. To which liberals say blaming immigrants for the rising crime rate is racist. Yeah, but is it true?
The idea that people instantly change the moment they enter the United States or Canada is not realistic compassion. It is wishful thinking. Culture, habits, and values develop over long periods, sometimes generations. They don't disappear just because someone crosses a border. Maher presents this as common sense. His argument is not that immigration is bad. It's that immigration without limits, checks, or planning creates real pressure for communities. Ignoring that reality doesn't make the problems go away. It only delays the consequences. From there, Maher turns this into a political warning aimed at Democrats. If they continue to dismiss valid concerns as ignorance or prejudice and act like voters don't understand what's happening, they will keep losing elections. Voters are already making that clear.
We've run this experiment many times, and the results are always obvious. Here's capitalist South Korea at night from space. Here's socialist North Korea. Yeah. In 1990, Venezuela was wealthier than Poland. But then Poland, finally free of Soviet-style economics, went all in on capitalism. And now their economy is as big as Japan. And people there have high wages, low inflation, cars, vacations, homes. Meanwhile, Venezuela traded capitalism for Hugo Chavez's socialism for the 21st century, which turned out to be like socialism in the last century or any century. Mess.
Then Maher addresses another growing idea within the Democratic Party, socialism. A louder and more visible group on the left has started to embrace the belief that capitalism causes inequality and that socialism is the better solution. They speak as if replacing the current system will bring fairness and success while ignoring history. Venezuela, Cuba, the Soviet Union. Again and again, socialist systems have led to control, shortages, economic failure, and widespread suffering. Yet supporters often respond the same way. That wasn't true socialism. The wrong people were in charge. The next version will succeed. Maher rejects that thinking and points to history's consistent outcome. Socialism doesn't fail because it's misunderstood. It fails because in reality it doesn't work.
It turned one of Latin America's richest countries into one of its poorest. Low wages, high inflation, shortages, outages, 8 million people fleeing. If you think New York can somehow reinvent this wheel, you're in for a rude awakening.
So that's the full picture. Bill Maher, someone the left once strongly supported, is now saying what many Democratic leaders avoid saying publicly. His main argument is that Canada is not the perfect progressive model it has been presented as. In several areas, it looks more like a warning than an example. A housing crisis worsened by high immigration levels. A healthcare system praised heavily despite weak results and high costs. An education system affected by ideology and reduced standards. And a level of institutional wokeness that, in Maher's view, makes honest conversation more difficult. And if Democrats continue to ignore these issues, continue pushing socialist ideas and policies voters don't trust, then election results will keep reflecting that. Reality doesn't change to match ideology. It doesn't adjust to hopeful thinking. And as Maher shows, sometimes the strongest criticism comes from within. If you enjoyed this breakdown, like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next one.